Imagine just, looking up at the night sky and realizing that the stars, the galaxies, like the infinite stretch of the cosmos, that none of it actually existed until you personally looked at it.
Right.
And I don't mean that in some poetic, philosophical, if a tree falls in the woods kind of way. I mean it literally, mechanically. Welcome to a deep dive that is going to completely rewire how you see your place in the universe today.
It really is.
Yeah, because today we're cracking open this mind-bending text called The Philosophy of Existence, specifically diving into part one, which deals with cosmic origins and the physical universe.
And it's just a phenomenal and, frankly, audacious set of sources.
Right. And our mission for you today is incredibly ambitious. We are going to dismantle the mechanical, mindless blueprint of the universe we've all been taught in science class and basically replace it with something deeply interactive.
Because normally, when cosmologists look at the origin of the universe, they treat the Big Bang as this cold, straightforward chain reaction.
Like a giant cosmic firecracker just going off in a dark room.
It's exactly. But this text refuses to isolate the physics like that. It takes quantum mechanics, thermodynamics, and the philosophy of consciousness, and it just forces them all into the same room.
Right.
It weaves them into a single cohesive tapestry, basically arguing that reality itself wasn't a given, it required an active participant.
Wow. I promise you by the time we finish this deep dive, you are going to look at the very concept of time. And honestly, you're going to look at yourself in the mirror entirely differently.
Oh, absolutely.
But don't worry about info overload. We aren't just going to throw equations at you. We're going to break down the literal mechanics of how nothingness became reality, focusing on the how and the why. So to understand our reality, we first have to understand the literal nothingness it came from.
Right, the void.
Yeah, because according to this text, everything begins with something called the cosmological first cause, which is, the idea that perfect nothingness is actually inherently unstable.
Yeah, and to grasp why nothingness would be unstable, we have to completely rethink what nothing actually means.
Right.
In classical everyday physics, nothing is just an empty box.
Yeah.
There is no matter, there is no energy, end of story.
Just empty space.
Right. But in the quantum framework that this text utilizes, that empty box isn't empty at all. It existed purely as a realm of probabilities, like it was a cosmic scale quantum superposition.
Okay, let's unpack this. When you say quantum superposition, are we talking about the same concept as the famous double slit experiment?
We are, yeah.
Okay, where a tiny subatomic particle essentially exists as a wave of infinite possibilities, like going through two slits at the exact same time until a scientist turns on a detector to watch it.
Exactly.
And the very act of observing it forces the particle to just snap into reality and hit one specific spot.
That is the exact mechanism, yes. But the text is scaling that microscopic quirk of quantum mechanics all the way up to the macroscopic universe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it argues that before the universe formally began, it existed as this primordial soup of potential. Every possible variation of the cosmos, every iteration of reality was hovering there simultaneously.
Just waiting.
Right, waiting. Because none of it was solid, none of it was real yet. It was just an infinite probability wave.
Yeah.
Because, well, a quantum wave function requires one very specific thing to actually collapse into physical reality.
It requires an observer,
Yeah.
something to watch it. But wait, if the universe hasn't started yet, there are no telescopes, no planets, there's no humans. Who or what is doing the observing to collapse this cosmic wave?
Right, so the source material introduces a concept it calls the ultimate observer.
The ultimate observer.
Yeah, it proposes the existence of a primordial quantum mind field. This is a form of symbolic consciousness that permeated this space of pure probability. And it was this consciousness that acted as the catalyst.
Okay, that makes me think of a massive cosmic video game environment.
That's a good way to look at it.
Think about how an open-world video game works. To save processing power, the console doesn't actually render the high-resolution graphics of a mountain range 3 miles away from your character, right?
Right.
The mountain is just code. It exists purely as a mathematical probability in the background. It only solidifies, it only renders the graphics when the player's avatar finally turns around and looks in that direction. The universe basically needed a player to force it to render.
That is a phenomenal analogy for what the text is describing. And what's fascinating here is the absolute necessity of that interaction.
Yeah.
The physical universe wasn't a foregone conclusion. It was a lock waiting for a key. Without the active participation of this quantum minefield...
Without the player turning to look at the code.
Exactly. Without that, The universe would have remained in that murky, undefined state of infinite potential forever. Reality required a mind to lock it into existence.
So the mind field looks at the unrendered universe and forces it to pick a physical form. That is wild.
It is.
But how does that decision actually physically manifest? Like if consciousness forces the universe to pick a lane, how do we get from a thought to an exploding universe?
Now, this is where the physics gets incredibly aggressive, and where the text makes one of its most provocative claims.
Okay.
When that mind field collapsed the wavefunction, it physically shattered the perfect mathematical symmetry of that primordial nothingness. And the text points to a very specific, observable scar left over from the shattering event.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because we aren't just talking about abstract philosophy anymore. The sources bring in actual hard satellite data here.
They do.
They point to the cosmic microwave background radiation, right? The literal heat map of the afterglow of the Big Bang.
Yes.
Specifically, they highlight something called the quadrupole and octupole anomalies. But look, I have to push back hard on this.
Sure.
Are the sources genuinely suggesting that random hot and cold spots in the background radiation of the universe are pointing a giant cosmic arrow right at Earth? Because that sounds exactly like what we did centuries ago.
They did the geocentric model.
Yeah, we used to arrogantly assume Earth was the center of the solar system, and we were dead wrong. Isn't this just the exact same human hubris, pretending we are the center of everything?
That is a completely fair and honestly necessary skepticism. For centuries, the Copernican principle has dictated our astronomy. You know, the idea that Earth is not special, that we are just a random speck in a random suburb of a random galaxy.
Right.
But the text is forcing us to look at the actual mapping of the cosmic microwave background. When satellites like WMAP and Planck mapped this ancient radiation, cosmologists expected it to be relatively uniform, just random noise.
But it wasn't.
No. When they analyzed the low multiple moments, which are the largest scale fluctuations in the radiation across the entire observable sky, they found these massive anomalies.
And what do these anomalies actually look like? Why are they so controversial?
They are essentially vast, subtle imbalances in the temperature of the early universe. But the quadrupole and octupole anomalies don't just exist randomly. They align with each other in a highly statistically unlikely way.
Okay.
And bizarrely, they geometrically align with the ecliptic plane and the equinoxes of our own solar system.
Which is insane.
Some cosmologists even nicknamed this alignment the axis of evil because it just threatens our standard cosmological models so much.
Right.
The text's argument is that this isn't a statistical fluke or some measurement error. It interprets this alignment as physical evidence that Earth holds a privileged central position in the topology of the universe.
Wow.
It proposes that this specific coordinate in space-time is the exact focal point from which that symbolic consciousness first emerged to observe reality into existence.
So if I'm understanding this, we aren't just in a random cosmic suburb. The data is suggesting we are sitting on the exact spot where the universe's rendering engine was first activated.
Essentially, yes.
That is staggering. But let's follow the mechanics of this for a second. The observation happens at this focal point, and the perfect symmetry is shattered. How does breaking symmetry actually create the universe?
Well, to understand that, you have to understand that in physics, perfect symmetry usually means things cancel out to absolute zero. Think of an accounting ledger where you have a positive 10 and a negative 10. The net result is perfectly balanced zero.
Right, nothing happens.
Exactly. The primordial state was that zero. When the quantum mind field forced the universe to choose a specific reality, it introduced a microscopic wobble. It tilted the ledger.
Okay, so it's like balancing a sharp pencil perfectly on its tip on a desk.
Good example.
It's technically symmetrical, it's perfectly balanced, but it is incredibly unstable. And the observation of the mind field is like a tiny microscopic breath of air that makes the pencil fall in one specific direction.
Exactly. And when that pencil falls, two massive physical consequences occur. First, we get the antimatter anomaly.
Okay.
According to the standard perfectly symmetrical model of the Big Bang, the universe should have created exactly equal amounts of matter and antimatter.
And if that happened, the matter and antimatter would have instantly collided, completely annihilated each other.
Yes.
And left behind a boring universe filled with nothing but empty light.
Precisely. But they didn't. Regular matter dominated. The text argues that this survival of matter is a direct, fundamental consequence of that initial symmetry breaking.
Because of the wobble.
Because of that observational wobble, yeah. The equation favored regular matter by a fraction of a percent. It left a microscopic remainder, And that tiny remainder is what went on to build every star, every planet, and every human body in existence.
Yeah.
It aligned matter with the forward arrow of time.
So the minefield causes a wobble, and because of that wobble, matter survives the antimatter annihilation. What was this second consequence?
The release of raw energy.
Right.
When a quantum system transitions from a state of perfect fragile symmetry to a shattered state, much like water releasing latent heat when it freezes into ice, it releases a violent burst of energy. This phase transition is what the text identifies as the inflaton field.
Inflaton field, that's the theoretical engine that drove cosmic inflation, right? Yep. The mechanism that took the universe from the size of a subatomic particle and just blew it up to macroscopic scales in a fraction of a second.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The shattering of perfect symmetry unleashed this immense energy, blowing the universe wide open and driving it violently forward.
Wait, if that much energy was violently released by the inflaton field, why didn't it just blow everything apart into an infinite chaotic mist?
Good question.
Like, how did we get from a universe-shattering explosion to the highly organized, beautiful galaxies we see today? Because we are always taught about entropy.
Right. The second law of thermodynamics.
The idea that physics dictates everything, moves from order to disorder, that the universe is just a winding down clock destined for a heat death where everything eventually decays into cold, dead radiation.
And that is the standard, somewhat depressing cosmological model that most of us learned, right?
Yeah.
The idea that disorder is the only ultimate trajectory. But the text completely reframes this view. It argues that time and thermodynamics are fundamentally symmetric. Yes, entropy absolutely exists as the force of disorder and decay. But the text argues it is perfectly counterbalanced by an opposing, equally powerful force. Synergy.
Synergy? I'll be honest, it sounds a bit like corporate jargon.
I know, it does.
I get entropy, a sandcastle washing away with the tide, a hot cup of coffee cooling down to room temperature. But how does synergy work as a physical law? How does the universe actively build complexity?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we just have to look at the large-scale structure of the cosmos to see synergy at work mathematically and physically.
Okay.
Gravity isn't just pulling things together blindly into a single clump. Matter is actively self-organizing. The text points to the cosmic web as the grand, undeniable demonstration of synergy triumphing over entropy.
The cosmic web. Right, when you look at those massive 3D supercomputer models of dark matter and galaxy clusters, it doesn't look like a random explosion at all.
Not at all.
It looks remarkably like a biological neural network. It looks like brain cells firing and connecting.
For resemblance is striking, honestly.
Yeah.
And according to this framework, that is not a coincidence. After the initial rapid expansion of the inflaton field, matter didn't just passively spread out and cool down into a dead mist. It gathered along invisible filaments. It ignited stars in the darkness, forged heavy elements in the bellies of those stars, and spun itself into incredibly complex interacting galaxies. This is synergy. It's the universe's innate physical drive toward emergence and complexity.
So it's not just a death march toward a freezing void. The universe is actually a machine designed to balance creation against decay.
It is a state of dynamic equilibrium. Entropy tears things down, synergy builds things up. The universe isn't a dying fire. It's a living engine running on the immense tension between those two opposing forces.
That is a much more optimistic way to look at reality.
It really is.
But that dynamic equilibrium raises a massive paradox. If time and thermodynamics are perfectly symmetric, perfectly balancing creation and decay, what balances the fact that all of our physical matter, you, me, the stars, the cosmic web, is relentlessly moving forward in time?
Right.
I mean, time only flows in one direction for us. Where's the symmetry in that?
That is the crucial missing piece of the puzzle, and it is the perfect question to ask here. Because symmetry demands a counterweight.
Right.
If the observable universe of matter is moving forward in time, the text proposes a truly mind-bending solution to maintain the balance. It calls it the delicate balance, suggesting that dark matter and dark energy may actually be oriented toward the reverse arrow of time.
So what does this all mean? Are you saying the dark matter anchoring our galaxy is literally flowing backward from the future into the past?
Conceptually and mathematically, that is the implication required to maintain cosmic equilibrium.
Wow.
Think about the great mystery of dark matter and dark energy. Together, they make up roughly 95% of the total mass and energy in the universe.
Which is huge.
Right. Yet they're entirely invisible to us. They don't interact with light. We only know they exist because we can feel their immense gravitational pull, holding galaxies together and pushing the universe apart. If they are governed by the reverse arrow of time, they are moving directly against our temporal flow.
Okay, let's drop the abstract physics and look at this like a cosmic accounting ledger.
Okay.
If physical observable matter is a massive column of positive numbers, moving forward, adding up day by day, creating history, the universe has to have an equally massive column of negative numbers to keep the grand total of existence perfectly balanced at zero.
Exactly.
So dark matter and dark energy are that negative column. They are running the calculation in reverse to keep the entire system from crashing. We can't see the negative numbers with our telescopes, but we can feel the sheer gravitational weight of the ledger balancing itself.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The positive and negative ledgers interacting simultaneously, invisibly, to keep the fundamental equation of the universe at zero.
Wow.
And this raises an important question, right?
Yeah.
How does this change our understanding of cause and effect? Because if you have a forward-moving timeline of matter and a backward-moving timeline of dark energy occupying the exact same space, you no longer have a simple straight line of history.
We don't have a timeline anymore. You have a knot.
Exactly. The text describes this as a multidimensional temporal landscape.
Okay.
Because these forward and reverse arrows of time coexist and interact gravitationally, the past, the present, and the future aren't isolated from one another. They are deeply structurally intertwined. Events in the future can theoretically create ripples that affect the past.
Which brings us to what might be the craziest, most awe-inspiring part of these sources, this idea of the synchronicity of cosmic events.
Yes.
Because if time is this multidimensional landscape where the end can influence the beginning, it completely recontextualizes events that cosmologists previously just chalked up to dumb luck.
Right. The text highlights a specific, massive cosmological event to prove this point. Billions of years ago, the universe's expansion suddenly hit the gas pedal. It began accelerating rapidly.
Right.
And we know this acceleration is driven by dark energy, which, as we just established in this framework, is flowing backward through time.
Right, the dark energy acceleration epoch.
At that exact epoch of cosmic acceleration, a perfectly timed supernova occurred in our local corner of the galaxy.
A supernova?
Yeah, a massive star exploded, synthesizing heavy elements like carbon, iron, oxygen, and sending them out into the void. This specific explosion directly led to the formation of our sun, our planetary disk, and ultimately the chemical building blocks for biological life on Earth.
Wait, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around the scale of this. The macro-level universe starts accelerating its expansion due to reverse-flowing dark energy. And at that exact same cosmic moment, on a micro level, the specific star that birthed our solar system blows up.
Correct. In a standard mechanical model of the universe, that timing is just a lucky coincidence.
Right, just a roll of the dice.
The fortunate roll of the cosmic dice. But in a multidimensional temporal landscape, governed by a quantum minefield striving for balance, that supernova wasn't a random explosion. It was a perfectly timed, synchronized event.
Unbelievable.
The macroscopic shift in the universe's expansion synchronized flawlessly with the microscopic birth of a solar system capable of supporting life.
Because it had to. It's a closed loop. The universe, guided by these intertwined arrows of time, creates the exact conditions necessary for human life to evolve, so that human life can eventually provide the consciousness required to look back and render the original universe into existence in the first place. We are the ultimate observer.
It is the ultimate cosmic synchronicity. The past created the future, and the future reached back through the temporal landscape to ensure the past unfolded correctly.
Man, that is a staggering amount of reality to rethink.
It's a lot.
But when you step back and look at it all together, it's actually incredibly elegant. Let's just briefly recap the incredible journey we just took. We started with a primordial realm of pure probability, a quantum wave of nothingness just waiting for a consciousness to observe it. We saw how that observation, centered right here on our cosmic coordinates, confirmed by the anomalies in the microwave background, was the tiny breath that shattered perfect symmetry.
And we explored the literal mechanics of that shattering.
Yeah.
How a tiny observational wobble allowed regular matter to survive antimatter, unleashing the massive energy of the inflaton field and sparking a universe driven not by the slow, depressing death of entropy, but by the dynamic, self-organizing power of synergy, which is visible in the intricate structure of the cosmic web.
All of it balanced by an invisible ledger. Dark matter and dark energy flowing backward through time, creating a multidimensional landscape where the birth of our own solar system was perfectly synchronized by the future to ensure we'd be sitting here right now talking about it.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like a summary of abstract physics. It feels like waking up.
And that is the true value of synthesizing these sources for you listening today. The realization that you are not a passive bystander.
Right.
You aren't just sitting in the audience watching a mechanical play unfold on a stage. According to the philosophy of existence, you are an active participant in the quantum mind field. Your consciousness is part of the very fabric that collapsed the original wave function and gave the universe its physical form.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative thought for you to mull over today as you go about your life.
Yes.
If the universe relies on a perfectly balanced ledger of time, if dark matter and dark energy are flowing backward, and the past, present, and future are as deeply entangled as this text suggests, does that mean the consciousness and the choices you are making right now, in the present, might actively be reaching back to influence the cosmic conditions of the past?
It is a profound implication. Every observation you make might be echoing backwards.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking up, keep asking questions, and above all, stay curious.